Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
This week, we analyze the remarkable marketing skills of Taylor Swift. She has regained ownership of her master recordings, convinced Apple and Spotify to pay artists in a more equitable way. She defied Hollywood. She markets her music in very surprising ways and holds over 70 Guinness World Records. The marketing of Taylor Swift. This week on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
Welcome, guys, to this week's episode of Heavy Metal Tones with me, your podcast host, Tony Evans. I did say last week in my sort of chat in my Facebook page, if anyone could work out, I gave them a clue. I said this week's episode was about a first wave punk band from the UK that has heavy metal influences or has a heavy metal connection. No one could seem to get it. And it was close calls. Millsy and Jeff both had good stabs at it. And then I put a second clue out, and I said it has to do with has a grave digger involved, and they still couldn't get it. Well, if you now have clicked on my little link, you would know quite clearly that it's The Damned. Now, Tony, I hear you asking, what is the connections between heavy metal and The Damned? Well, firstly, on this particular album, The Damned's third album, released in 1979, the first after the band had reformed, they disbanded off the second album and reformed, and David James left the guitar position, went off in his own way, and Captain Sensible took over the guitar part. And then on bass, we have, from the legendary NWOBHM band, Tank, Algie Ward. There you go. There's one Brian James, not David James. Brian James. Algie Ward on the first and only time that he had with the band. There's one heavy metal connection. Second heavy metal connection is that one of the singles off this album, the B-side, was Ballroom Blitz, and who played bass on Ballroom Blitz? None other than Lemmy Kilminster of the Motorhead. He also did play on a lot of the demos with The Damned when they formed. Because of copyright names, they were worried about that, so they had a sort of like a tour under a band called Les Punks and The Doomed, and so Lemmy came into the studio and sort of had to play around with them. They never used those parts obviously on the albums, but they used them for the demos. But he did play on Ballroom Blitz on the B-side of one of the singles, which we'll talk about later on. So those that don't know who The Damned are my favourite. I think really on reflection, I went for a really long walk this morning and I was listening to the album probably 4 or 5 times again just to get my head around it. And on reflection, they are probably my favourite punk band outside of the Pistols, because they're unlike a lot of the sort of really heavy socio bands, like the Pistols and the Clash and the Crass and all that. They weren't trying to change the world. They just wanted to make fast, fun rock and roll. They wanted to knock down the walls and rebuild the palaces of the music world. Speaking of which, sadly, Keith Levine died on the 11th of November. So if you're listening to this, 11th of November 2022. Keith Levine was the guitarist with Pill. He did form The Clash, but didn't stay with him. They recorded without him. But he basically took the sound of punk and created new wave and modern music. I think one of the most influential and most little-known guitarists who ever picked up a six-string, and we will miss him. It saddened me that day when I found out, because he just was a genius, and a much forgotten genius, I think, as well. Anyway, yeah, The Damned. I think I've seen The Damned more times than any other punk band. I think probably second only to the Stiff Little Fingers. And every time they just create fun, fast, furious fun. The later sort of, iterations of the band were more gothic, with that tripe of an album, Phantasmagoria. I don't like it at all. I just don't. Eloise. People go, "Oh, The Damned, your Eloise is Anyway, they were the first punk band to release a single with New Rose. Even when everyone thinks it's the Pistols, it wasn't. It was The Damned. They were the first to be on top of the Pops, I believe, and they were the first to play Old Grey Whistle Test. But I, again, could be wrong on that respect. A lot of firsts with The Damned. But yes, so there's your heavy metal connection. So it wraps into the genre of which we talk about. But I love punk anyway, and this is going to be, I thought we'll chat about this album, because the reason I chose this album, I was listening to it. I literally just put it on about 4 or 5 days ago to listen to it again, because it's one of my favourites. And I thought, hang on, yeah, Algie Ward's on bass on here, and Lemmy's on bass on Ballroom Blitz. Yeah, talk about it on the show. Other connections were as well, on the opening track, Machine Gun Etiquette. They're uncredited, but Mick Jones and Joe Strummer sing on that. This was hand claps on that song from Paul Simonon. The reason that's the case is they were recording at the sadly now no longer their Wessex studios, and where the Pistols recorded actually, but it's where Queen recorded, and everyone recorded at Wessex Studios. I had an old friend whose brother was a sound engineer out that way in the 80s. Brilliant. But they were recording at the same time as the Clash recording London's Burning, and so they sort of being friends. Unlike the rivalries that some of these punks pretend they've got, they're actually good friends, and they just chipped in. It's also, I think, one of the first sort of, I think what I love about The Damned as well, mainly more so than anything else, is that they don't want to try and tell you that the government's awful and the world is dead and you're soulless inside, and break down all the barriers and rebuild them. They do it, but in a sort of more subtle and more fun pop-based way. And the energy there, then you don't lose the energy. Sometimes when there's too much political angst in the songs, and the Clash are guilty of this, they lose the musicality and the fun of the moment. But that's aside, right? The singles of the album were Love Song, Smash It Up, and then this, I think, sorry, maybe what others? The other single? Just Can't Be Happy Today was another one that they released as well. But we'll go on. We'll do track by track, sort of later on. But I want to first talk about the moment that this album was released. So 1979. So punk is sort of it's not waning. I mean, 77 to 79. By then, people were very fickle in the music world back in the late 70s and early 80s. In fact, the whole of the 70s really. They were looking for the next big thing. They wanted something different. They always wanted something to sell a record. You had a resurgence from Genesis and from Yes and those sort of big bands. Queen were, knocking on the door, running up the charts. Elton John was, probably musically at his peak, I would honestly say about that. You had the Americans that were trying to sort of break, the UK, where the money was. They were trying to get, so you had Blondie and Television and Talking Heads. I mean, the Ramones had already done it, but they were still niche. But they were trying to come through as well. You know, then of course you've got bands who are fizzling out, who maybe just one album wonders, which were fine. That's fine. But there were other bands that were transitioning as well, like the Police, for instance. You know, the Police, you know, were sort of taking all the wondrous music of the 70s, punk and disco and funk and reggae and not disco, sorry, reggae, funk and soul and jazz, and they were making these, you know, interesting albums. Now, subsequently to that is that people look at people with long hair who listen to this music, heavy metal, and they think we're all stupid, or, you know, and which is obviously completely wrong. We're not all Beavis and Butthead. We're not all, you know, we're not all whatever they think we are. We're just not all that sort of white sneaker, long hair stupidity. We're not, are we? We're not all Wayne's World. That's what I was trying to think of. We're not all Bad Taste or Spinal Tap. There's a lot of intelligence, and I think the same with the punk thing is that people looked at the. No, don't get me wrong. There is a certain resemblance, a certain faction of the musical cognoscenti of the punk genre that is, you know, let's say, you know, a little bit Vivian, if you get my drift, all right, a little bit thuggish and stupid, a little bit racist, arrogant, and violent. But that's just the way that the music gets you moving, isn't it? I mean, there's violence in all music. Everything, in some respect, is violence. You know, I read that great quote from the Dalai Lama. He said, "Making a cup of tea is an act of violence." The fact that when they pick the leaves, there's bugs. The bugs on the leaves get crushed and killed. The bush itself is hurt. When the truck transports the leaves to the factory, on the roads, creatures die. Fossil fuel destroys the planet. Yeah, you know, putting the kettle on and boiling water and using energy to do that is also, you know, using fossil fuels is an act of violence. So everything is an act of violence, right? So it's just the way it is. But also, though, the beauty of the punk movement, what makes I get very excited about punk, and it's because it didn't. Yes, it's still there as it's, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, sort of. It stayed still in some places, but it went and it moved very, very, very quickly from one style of music really diversely into another. I mean, we talked about the diversity of heavy metal a few episodes ago, but the punk diversity is even more so, I think, and so quickly, because it went into new wave and ska, and it went in, you know, you have bands writing really interesting albums like Sham 69 making a concept album. You have the Police, as I said, with these really intricate and verbose drum patterns and fretless bass solos, and you know, you have. You know, it's not just it's just, you know, the Peel. There's a great example as I talk about Keith Levine. You know, with all these stark, they got bottles thrown at them. Some of them, the fans wanted just Anarchy in the UK all the time, or New Rose, or you know, any of that sort of first wave punk stuff. You know, X-Ray Specs, or you know, they just want. You know, World Turn Day Glow, you know, or the Clash. They just want, you know, Jimmy Jane. It is White Riot. Sorry, there are that factor, but they didn't listen, did they? Because like a lot of people, like horror movies is a good analogy for it. If you think about it, a lot of good very popular film directors now who are really huge in Hollywood, coming through the horror genre because it's easy to make and cheap to make, and it's easy to scare and make big money. And punk was that way, I think, for a lot of them. There's a great line by the Stiff Little Fingers that say that we weren't good enough to be a jazz band. And that's what they wanted to be originally, until they saw the Pistols in Dublin. You know, it was at the Clash, no, the Clash in Dublin. And so, you know, things move forward, and that's what this album is. Why I think Machine Gun Etiquette, which is the album we're talking about, the third of the Damned's long and illustrious career, is one of their best albums. I think actually, truly, I think is their best album, because the first two is like a young boy learning to play the guitar, and he's just thrashing around wildly with his mates, you know, with some musical direction, because one of the guys in the band has a little bit of knowledge, like the Beatles, you know, just firing all cylinders, like the Pistols with Glenn Matlock, firing all cylinders. And then they realise, you know, like anything, like any amphetamine high or any cocaine rush or any, you can't keep up with it, you can't keep doing it, but you still want to have the elements of that in there, because that's what gets you excited, it's what gives you a hard on, it's what, you know, whatever, and you know, it makes waking up in the morning bearable, I think. And so this album is really important, because even though it has elements of that in there, it's a really well crafted. I think this is their Sgt. Pepper. I mean, I've said it before. Every band, every considerably big band or, you know, influential band, has what I call their Sgt. Pepper moment, or if you're in America, you could call it their Pet Sounds moment, whatever you want to do. I would call it the Sgt. Pepper moment, being British and not liking the Beach Boys. Oh no, it's not true. They're all right. Their moments. It's a great. Actually, Pet Sounds is a great album. I shouldn't say that. But you know, it is what it is. And I think everyone. And this is their Sgt. Pepper album. It's their third album, which means that they've sort of grown up. And I think getting rid of Brian James, or Brian James leaving, was a really good move, because love you, Brian, but Captain Sensible was a far better guitarist. Captain had this love of Hendrix, really, really loves Hendrix, and loves blues guitar and rock and heavy rock and progressive. He loves everything, really. He's a really smart and interesting dude. And so it was good moving him on to guitar, because it freed the band up. Now, I just forgot to mention, where's the grave, you're going up here, I'm sure going, where's the Gravedigger connection, Tone? Did I mention it? Well, Dave Vanian, the lead singer of The Damned, was a gravedigger while and before he joined the band. So there's my Gravedigger connection. So you've got your heavy metal connection and your Gravedigger connection. I just got sidetracked. Anyway, some of the best live shows I've ever seen of The Damned, I took my wife to see, my then girlfriend, her first gig we saw with her, I took her to see, was The Damned and the Anti-Nowhere League. Now, man, if you don't know who the Anti-Nowhere League is, do me a favour, pause this podcast, come back, of course, it must come back to me, people, but go away, or afterwards, play anything by the Anti-Nowhere League, of course, the first few albums. We Are the League, Woman, Snowman. You listen to it. You don't want to listen to it with your granny around, or you maybe your middle-class wife, or your very sensible husband, or your prudish boyfriend, or whoever's going to offend. You know, I mean, personally, I don't give a fuck whether you offend anyone. I really don't. In fact, viva la différence, as they say in Italy. Do me a favour, put it on, and that will blow your little minds, I reckon. But aside that, what a great gig that was. It was The Damned, but it was not the original lineup. So there was no Sensible. I think really the only people that are in the band that I recognise was Toby Jugs on keyboards and Dave Vanian on vocals. I don't even think Rex Scabies was in on drums, now I think about it. I'd have to look at that. I'd have to look at that lineup and see who it was. But anyway, and again, that gig is actually on YouTube, very roughly that it is. You can see it. I am somewhere at the front, bouncing around. Brilliant gig, absolutely brilliant. In fact, I was stuck behind this guy with a massive Mohican, and he was in a Toy Dolls shirt. And now Toy Dolls, brilliant band, brilliant single, Nelly the Elephant by Toy Dolls. Again, go and find it if you want a bit of a laugh. I think it's one of my wife's favourite songs, actually. But yes, so as I said, it's their Sergeant Pepper moment, right? It's their moment where they mature and they grow up, and they look at their selves and go, "Hey, Captain, you can play really well. Why don't you get onto guitar? We'll get a bass player from somewhere." And I mean, what a great choice! I mean, Tank. Well, you know, again, if you don't know Tank, they were one of the new wave of British heavy metal bands. I've mentioned them before. Hound Dogs. Their first album is Filth Hounds of Hades, is one of the seminal albums of the NWOBHM movement. It really, really is. It's just it's that lovely mix of punk and heavy metal. So, you know, it's a must. It's a very hard album to get. You can't get on Spotify, I don't believe. You're gonna have to YouTube it, I think. I bought a really nice reissue of it in yellow vinyl with the single recently, actually last year in lockdown. Really nice print, actually. Come with a big poster and some artwork. It's just really cool. Yeah, so that's, you know, that, as I was saying, sidetracking myself, they've grown up. Whereas a lot of the bands, I mean, I don't know. I'd love to think that if the Pistols did one more album, they might have had their Sgt. Pepper moment. I think John Lydon did with Def Disco. And Annalise and things like that. I think he did, because it also helps that someone like John, having no real musical ability, and I don't mean that badly towards John. I love him, but you know, he's not picking a guitar, playing piano. He's not musically trained. You know, his voice is his voice because he never heard himself sing, and it was his point of difference. And he just wanted to be, he's super, super, super intelligent. And so he just wanted to use his intelligence and get it out somehow with his voice. And I don't know if he had been more musically trained, say like Lennon and McCartney or wherever, would he have made those albums? Probably not. He probably would have gone down the Police route and made some kind of mega pop song album, like some album like Hysteria or something like that, you know. I don't know, maybe not. I think maybe the fact that he was held back without the musical talent made him move forward, you know, in a weird way. So it held him back but propelled him forward into sort of realms of I mean, he's a bit cocky, as old John. I mean, he said he reckons he invented hip-hop. I mean, come on, you have to, I mean, he may have helped free people to create without a studio backing behind them, label backing, but that's about as far as it goes, I think, maybe. Although I do have a really good, he did a great track called Time Bomb with African Bombata, which is really fantastic. And again, finding that's quite difficult. I don't think it's on Spotify, or it might be, I don't know. But I was really into African Bombata when I was a young man, like the electro stuff, Grandmaster Flash and the Wheels of Steel, you know, Tommy Boy, all that sort of stuff. I really got into that before it got sort of taken over and became rap that it is now, you know, when the Beastie Boys and people like that, when it was sort of a mix of different genres, when it became, you know, boats and hoes and attainment and gold teeth and violence and gun stuff, it just got destroyed. I'm sure people love it out there, but, you know, anyway, it has its place, doesn't it? So I'm going to go now and get a fresh cup of tea because mine's a bit parched, and you enjoy some adverts, you know, and while you're enjoying those, I'll get back in a few seconds and we'll go track by track on this amazing album. See you on the other side, guys. Bye now. Welcome back, guys, to part 2. So we're going to do a quick rundown of track by track. Now, musically, I won't say too much about it musically, because it's punk, it's complicated, it's bouncy, it's fast. I will mention obviously some things, but if you want to just give it a listen yourself. But it is a really interesting, diverse album. It's not like most punk albums of that particular time where you put it on and it's 1, 2, 3 and over it goes. I think the Clash's first album and the Pistols, Never Mind the Bollocks, are probably the two ones I don't sit in that sort of category. Anyway, so the interesting thing about this album is they wanted to tap into several different musical forms. They do hard rock, they do 60s garage band, they do punk, they do 70s music. For the first time ever, they use a thing called a farfisa organ. I had to Google that. It's basically an Italian sort of version of a Hammond organ. The bands that have used it are Blondie, the B-52s, Sly Stone, and Pink Floyd, to name a few. Okay, I think also Adam Holtzman, when we saw them, Adam Holtzman, when we saw him live with Stephen Wilson, I think I had one. It looks like he had one playing. He was playing one. They're using lots of different sort of, and the reason I also said before in the first part that I feel this is their sort of Sgt. Pepper moment is because they also use like sound effects and things to fill out space and textures. It's not just, cold hard rock and roll. And right at the beginning of the first track, you hear Jack Jack Howarth. He played Albert Tatlock in Coronation Street for many years. In fact, there's a really good skid song, a B-side that mentions him, and he was sort of a post-war comedian, and he says "I'll do," and it's like that's his sort of northern hello sort of greeting, and they use that at the beginning of it. And there's also right at the end of Smash It Up, there's a snippet from my favourite radio play and book of all time, which is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and he just rings out at the end. It just goes, "Nibbled to death by an okapi, nibbled to death by an okapi, nibbled to death by an okapi." I can't say that. You said it fast, guys. Nibbled to death by an okapi. There you go. That's what I was trying to say. Anyway, there's a quote from there. They're the most British punk band of the lot of them, I think, much more so than the Clash. The Clash were looking to America, and the Damned were more introspective and looking into their own sort of crazy British sense of humoury kind of thing, whereas America, the Clash were trying to run away from it. It's a bit of a contradiction because the cover of Machine Gun Etiquette has them all on at in New York at 704 and 4th or something. One of the main streets there in New York is photographed there. So it's just a bit of a contradiction, which is what the Damned are, aren't they, really? A couple of the songs all the songs were written by the band, but one or two of them were helped be written by a guy called Giovanni Dadomi. Now, Giovanni Dadomi was a music writer, wrote for NME and Sounds, but he was also in a band, and one of my favourite quirky one-off hit wonder bands that didn't actually have a single, but were just, and it's actually quite rare to get hold of, is a band called the Snivelling Shits. Yeah, you heard it, the Snivelling Shits. I've got it on brown vinyl, my one. It's brilliant. They had 2 singles of it. I Can't Come, which is... you have to hear it. I Can't Come is just brilliant. Put a finger up my bum, I can't come. It's about taking too much speed and not being able to, finish off, if you know what I mean. And then the other one is God a Man. It's great song. Is God a man, and did he buy a car? And it's just so. And of course, I always thought of him as a complete and utter joke, because he's made this. He said he'd make a punk band, and he did. And he said anyone could do it, and he made the Snivelling Shits. And then he helps write several songs for one of the most influential bands of the entire punk movement. Really fascinating to me. He you know, the first song, the first single off the album, which is Love Song, was released in 1979. It really just showed their hard rock chops on this. I think this is one of it's one of the best sing-along. I mean, there's loads of sing-along songs on this album, but it's one of the best sing-along songs on this album, I think. It's really hectic, it's really manic, it's really dynamic. It's in the best punk way. Only hangs around for 2 minutes and 21 seconds. It's not hanging along, you know. It's not trying to teach you Karl Marx, you know, Marxism. It's not trying to convert you to Maoism and whatever. It's just a fun song, love song. It's a love song. That's what it is, right? It's just about them writing a love song. I mean, I'll 1 second. I'll pull the lyric up and I'll give you an idea. All right. Again, this is why I think this is also one of their you know, sort of Beatles moments. Listen to this lyric. I'll be the ticket, you'll be the collector. I got the fare if you're my inspector. I'll be the luggage, you'll be the porter. I'll be the parcel if you'll be my sorter. Just for you, here's a love song. Just for you, here's a love song. And it makes me glad to say it's been a lovely day, it's okay. Right? Brilliant. Right? Very Beatlesque, isn't it, in that respect? Very sort of summery and fun, and it is. It's just a bouncy, fun song, and I think it just opens the album in such a really sort of enjoyable and fantastic way. It leads, you know, and as I said, I also think this is probably one of Sensible's, because it's one of his first solos on the album. Well, it is his first solo on the album. As a lead guitarist, rhythm guitarist, it just goes to show what they could have done. I'm not saying that Brian wasn't a great guitarist, but what they could have done if Brian had said, "I'll play bass." You know, 1 second, let's get my tea. Oh, bugger, shit. Sorry, I'm not going to edit that out. Pardon me. I put it behind me on the windowsill, and I'm not very supple. You know what I mean? I'm not ambidextrous. I don't have 2 sugars in my tea. Anyway, then he's followed by Machine Gun Etiquette. Again, 1 minute 48. Not hanging around, right? Doing its thing, getting there, making you high with musical fun and moving on, right? I've written it's an amazing mix of disparate musical forms. I think this one. It's up, it's down, it's in, it's out, it's fast, it's slow, it's quick, it's quiet, and it's all in that 1 minute 48, right? And as I said, this has Mick Jones and Joe Strummer uncredited on this, and Paul Simonon doing hand claps on this as well, and on other parts of the album. So it is for title track. What's daring about this as a title track is a lot of title tracks on albums. You know this, guys, can be it's a title track. We better make this all the focal part of the album, and it doesn't really do that. Doesn't need to do that because it doesn't hang around long enough. And it's also about the fact that the people didn't want them coming back. They didn't think that they could do it. They didn't think they could maintain a third album. And I'll give you 1 second here. Here, and it's also, I'll give you the lyric because this is back exactly what it's. Here goes. I remember when you said second time around, you don't wish that we were you don't wish that we were dead second time around. No more getting pushed around second time around. Not that we've gone underground second time around. What the love song did for me second time around. Really famous, stinking rich second time around. Love song, and what they're talking about there is New Rose. Okay, that's a nod back to the very first punk single release, which is New Rose, which was a love song, or anti-love song, if you want to look at it that way. So brilliant, really. Great way of saying, hey, we're not going away anywhere, guys. We are a seminal member of this movement and this counterculture. And then we move into Just Can't Be Happy Today. Just Can't Be Happy Today is something I would expect to hear on their Black album. It sounds musically like it's also from Strawberries, the later albums. It's sort of, I feel it sort of sticks out a bit on this album. It's a brilliant song because it's getting sing along. What I mentioned is Dave Vanian on this album as well is not so much falsetto anymore. He's more sort of your baritone vocal range. That could be down to he's learnt more as he's growing recording, or he thinks that that's not something that is necessary anymore within the musical genre that they're playing in. Great. Here we hear the Farfase organ really well. It really bangs in here, and it just goes again, being played by Captain Sensible, who is, by the way, live, brilliant. Just pumps away. I mean, now they have a keyboard player now. I said they have Toby Jugs. He plays on keyboards now, has done for years. But back then it was Captain. And listen to this great lyric, right? There's a great spoken word bit that comes in, right? I'll read it to you. 1 second. I wrote it down, but can I read my own handwriting? No, fuck, I can't read my own handwriting. Here we go. Great entertainment, eh? Great entertainment, guys. I just can't be happy today, right? And it's a really good. It's like a really pounding organ, and then it comes into this sort of frantic, almost War of the Worlds radio broadcast. Sounds like he's announcing the end of the world, right? And you can almost feel the power behind it. The church is in ruins, the priests hang on hooks, the radio's on ice, the telly's been banned, the army's in power, the devil commands. Illegal to dance, forbidden to cry. Do what you want, do what you're told, and never ask why. It's just, ignore all the fools, they don't understand, we make our own rules, I just can't be happy today. I'll say that, I'll read it out slower, because I read it a bit fast. Here we go. My best thespian voice. Here we go. The church is in ruins. The priest hang on hooks. The radio's on ice. The telly has been banned. The army's in power. The devil commands. Illegal to dance. Forbidden to cry. Do what you're told and never ask why. It just has this feel that it should be on one of the other albums. It's really dramatic. It's really again, great sing-along. Just can't be happy, just can't be happy, just can't be happy today. It's a really, wow, I should be in a band, people. It is, I think, one of my top favourite songs on the album, probably my third favourite, but it's, again, it sort of has that sort of desperate new wave sound that sort of XTC sort of cornered. So perfectly well, but it's not that as odd as an XTC album. By the way, I really fucking love XTC, but it's just an interesting one, right? It's just an interesting one, and then we move into Melody Lee. It's very windy outside, guys. If you can hear that, Melody Lee. I didn't know what Melody Lee was about for years. I had no idea. In fact, I only found out about what it actually is about while researching this for the show, which is really nice for me. I learned something. So there was a British comic, a girls' comic called Bunty, and it wasn't just a girls' comic, but it was a British comic called Bunty, and in that magazine there was a comic strip called Melody Lee, and Melody Lee was about a dancer who was being coached by an ex sort of dancer, and it was really creepy. Apparently it's quite creepy. I've never read it, but according to the thing, it was quite creepy, and they sort of removed it from the comic, and Captain Sensible and his then girlfriend went and protested outside the there was a protest to put Melody Lee back into the comic. It was the same time as Sid Vicious's first London solo gig, and so he didn't turn up for that, which is interesting. It's crazy, isn't it? But it is. The lyrics are all taken from speech bubbles and what's it called? The storylines of the comic Melody Lee. There you go. And again, it's a good sing along. It's really fast. It's very jaunty. I think I wrote in big red letters "jaunty" in my book. The lyric itself is nothing complicated because it's from the comics, you know. Melody Lee, a broken man and a broken dream. It must have been a change of heart. Your life was cruel, they called it art. So basically, they're talking about the comic being cancelled there. Melody Lee, you need a nuke to set you free. You know you can't cheat tomorrow. If you hide any sorrow, Melody Lee, you've got to find your secret enemy. So this is the weird stuff that was going on. So I did some more research into the comic strip, and it was, sort of like about, also spying almost, like a dancer being coached as a spy, I think. Again, do your own research, but that's what I saw in a very small bit of paper, a little link on Wikipedia that I could find. Doesn't really matter. I loved the song before I knew what it was about. I think I love it even more now. Because I was in a band for a little while, and I was in many bands, but one of the bands I was in, we couldn't think of a fucking lyric. We couldn't think of a lyric at all. And the band was called, now hold your horses here, Spunk. All right? Yes, it was a punk band called Spunk. It was nicked. I think the Pistols had done something similar. Anyway, what we did, James, the guitarist slash bass player slash singer slash drummer slash everything, can you see I hold some grudges? Probably not. Anyway, I don't hold them anymore. I put them in my pocket and occasionally play with them. I get them out and throw them at him. He couldn't think of lyrics, so what he used to do is to get newspapers, headlines out, and there's an art form called frottage, where you just which was invented by Max Ernst, where you put like canvas on canvas in different patterns without, you just don't, it's random, and you glue it in strips onto canvas, and then you paint backgrounds and creatures and landscapes into it. It's called frottage, and Max Ernst is my favourite painter of all of them, really. And so I was really studied him when I was at art college, and we did that, and I remember thinking, oh god, it's so wanky, this is oral frottage. And I said to him, if we have a first album, we should call it oral frottage. And he looked at me as if I was some kind of, I don't know, I had 8 legs and 2 heads and come from the planet Zod, I don't know. Anyway, that aside, he also got me kicked out from a Chumbawamba gig because we were backstage, and he tried to crack on to the lead singer of Elastica, and at that time her boyfriend was Mark Lamar. If you ever watched Shooting Stars, 50s throwback Mark Lamar, and I told him not to, and he kept doing it, and then these 2 bloody big Tongans chucked us out into Camden High Road. By the way, my wallet was was in my jacket in the venue, which they wouldn't let me get, so I had to walk home from Camden Town to Hendon, but we stayed overnight in Willesden in his grandfather's house, and his grandfather would let these guys in to use their phone to do some what he thought was pizza delivery. It turned out to be drug delivery. So I was sleeping on the floor, the dogs got kicked in, I got forced against the wall, I got searched. An 85-year-old man is searched. It turns out that they made a mistake, had to fix the door. Let me tell you, I didn't sleep after that. It was hilarious after the fact, right? Anyway, that aside, oral frottage. So that's what we used to do, right? And I think it's sort of a bit like the Melody Lee thing, Anyway, moving on. Strange story aside, move to the next one. A cracker of an album, of a song. 5 stars out of 5 this song for me. If you really want to distill late punk to early hardcore in one song and its essence to be trapped forever, and then to define it and study it. Anti-Pope is the next one, is it. It is a tremendous, speed-driven, anti-religious song, and here's the big but, and I like big buts, no, I'm not joking. I cannot lie, by that way, I cannot lie. It does not say it's an anti-Catholic lyric, but he doesn't say that he thinks that the people that the followers, they're fine. The people that believe it's fine. It's the people above the followers, right? It's what he's trying to have a go at. Okay, I'm going to read you the entire lyric. Bear with me, okay? Bear with me. You might go, oh God, why is he reading me the whole lyric? I'll read you the whole lyric so you can get an idea. So you don't. You say, okay, right. I'm going back to church tonight. I'll get just like back when I was 8, but I don't mean to pray. I'm going to nick a collection plate. I've got nothing against the church, only people that go there and show their plain ignorance and don't understand. A congregation at weekends. Come on, where is it? Sorry, 1 second. Oh, it's always the case, isn't it? Technology. Okay. 1 second. Oh, okay, here we go. Congregation at weekends will change their behaviour, so many people are weak and have to seek answers from the peddlers of hope. I should know, I used to go there myself. That's why I became anti-Pope. There's going to be some fun tonight. Spreading news around the town. The vicar's a transvestite with a fetish for robes and gowns. I've got nothing against the church, only people that go there and show their plain ignorance and don't understand. Let's see, it's basically... Oh yeah, religion doesn't mean a thing, it's just another way of being right-wing. I think sex films are okay, I don't dig that Pope, no way. I've got nothing against church, only the people that go there and show their plain ignorance and don't understand. So basically what it's trying to say is, it's not having a, well, it is having a go at the people who go to church, but it's saying that you're going there blindly. He's not having a go at the organised religion as such. I think it's just Catholicism. Obviously, I think maybe... Dave was, I don't know if he was Catholic or not, and he had issues. Sounds like if he wrote it, it sounds like he did. It's sort of a Dave song. It's basically saying, why go one day of the week and change your views of life on being there for just one day, for 1 hour of your day? How's that control your thoughts? I think that's basically what he's saying. I mean, I read somewhere that he said, or the band said, it was not about the followers, it was about the church. But then you read that lyric back again, and it does sound like, if you read the lyric like it says there, a congregation on weekends will change their behaviour. So many people are weak and then have to seek answers from the peddlers of hope. Yeah. I do love the transvestite bit, though. That does make me smile a bit, I have to say. A congregation at weekends will change it. Yeah, that's... It's still, for me, one of the best sort of, God, running out of words, Tone. It's a really good, God, I keep saying, what's going on today? Hang on 1 second. It's a good way, if you want to hear what punk really is and where it was going, is listen to Anti-Pope. Because it's not like Crass, where it's just screaming at you. It's not like the Pistols, where it's like looking down at you. It's not like the Clash that are middle class. And I shouldn't be rude because I love the Clash, but there was a bit of sort of like a little bit of contradiction when it comes to the Clash, and a lot of those sort of political bands of the late 70s, they weren't, this is probably as political, honestly, as the Damned will get, really, if I think about it. And it also, the album was sort of banned from Radio 1 because of it's a lot of the singles, because of the anarchistic overtones. Smash It Up was banned from Radio 1, but that's really good, because the more they banned it, the more singles they sold. That was often the case. Let me get my diary. I've got a new diary, by the way. If it's a bit noisy, because it's I'm just getting used to it, and so I don't know the sort of noise it gets. You can't go into a shop now and say, "Can I have a silencer for my notebook?" I don't know if they make them. Can I get a silencer for my notebook? I want a covert notebook, please. Yeah. So then we move on from there, from that brilliant song. Fantastic. Speed, fast, fun, but anti-corruption of the church, and about his loss of faith. Fantastic. Well, not fantastic, he's lost faith, but you know what I mean. And then we go on to These Hands. Now, I've written 3 words here. Odd, odd, and odd. Now, again, really, this is the most Pepper-esque, Sergeant Pepper-esque moment. It really sounds, honestly, like, and you know the track when I say it. One second, am I mixing too high? One second. It really sounds like Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite. It is. It's almost like they've sort of channeled that particular. I mean, that's one weird song. It's actually my favourite on that album. It's very weird, isn't it? And so, if you hear this song, I'm not going to say much more. I want you to listen to it and see if you hear this particular. If you hear this particular sound, I mean, I just think it's sonically, lyrically, it's just weird, just like this song is. There's, you don't get much more strange than that particular track, I don't think. I mean, actually, my 3 favourite Beatles songs, Norwegian Wood, Maxwell's Silver Hammer, and For the Benefit of Mr. Kite. I think it's just slightly crazy. And this is slightly crazy too. And it is odd, and odd. I don't want to say much more about it, because I think there's, it just gives me the creeps a little. It's a bit creepy, I have to say. I found it off-putting the first time I heard it. When I have it on vinyl, I often skip it, to be honest. Moving on to Plan 9, Channel 7. Ooh, this is a good live song, this one. This is Dave Vanian really channeling into Phantasmagoria and the Black Album and his pre-goth image. He's always been a bit gothy, right? But he's like really gothic in this one, because he has this real fetish and fascination with Vampira, the 1950s TV hostess. She's also in Plan 9 from Outer Space. This is a play on it. That's why it's called Plan 9 Channel 7. It's basically about it's an homage lyrically and sonically to Vampira. Not Elvira, of course. We all love Elvira, but Vampira is like the pre-Elvira, right? And there's a beautiful lyric in it. I'm just going to find it. Here you go. She plays her mouth into a smile and offers that he stay a while. 2 hearts that the best as one, and eyes that hardly ever saw the sun. Hollywood babbles on, she lays a wreath of lilies on his grave, his flame gone along with the love he never gave. Now that's lovely, because Vampira was the lover of James Dean, so it's really lovely, because that's her laying a wreath on his grave. It's her loss of his love. And then of course and then it moves on to the fantasy and the strangeness of Edward Wood movies, like Plan 9 and so on. I don't know what the Channel 7 thing is, because I don't know if it's connected to Plan 9 from Outer Space. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie. Maybe they couldn't call it that, and that's why. I don't know. I love it. 2-dimensional comic clips. Hollywood babbles on and on and on and on. Channel 7 with shades of grey. Too close but 2 worlds away. Plan 9, Hello May. Too close, 2 worlds away. It's really it's a lovely, sweet song. I mean, I used to sing along to that as a teenager, and I had no clue what it was about. I mean, I've known for years that it's about Plan 9 from Outer Space as I've got older. Well, considered one of the worst movies of all time, and truly, as Seinfeld says, you've got to see Plan 9 from Outer Space on the big screen, and you do have to see it on the big screen, with Tor Johnson and Bela Lugosi in one of his last movies, and Vampira. It's just wonderful. Ed Wood is a crazy director, and you know, you could dig out and have a look at these movies, but do go and see Plan 9 from Outer Space, because this song was inspired by it. Also, I think, in fact, there's another song inspired by it on the first Adam and the Ants album. And I don't mean Adam and the Ants as in Prince Charming. I mean proper Adam and the Ants when he was a punk band. And the album's called Dirk Wears White Socks. That's SOX. That, my friends, if you want a really interesting punk album, jump into that and listen to Catholic Day, which is a song about the assassination of Kennedy, and it will chill you. It is chilling yet entertaining. Okay, there's also a good Plan 9 from Outer Space tribute as well on there. So now musically, what I've written here, I've put the band turns here from punk to goth. I think that is really where it does turn. I said before they turn, but it's even more so here. Yeah, it's definitely a winner, that song. It's also like a nice way to fill the album. I mean, there's really at the moment the only filler for me is, as I said, the only one I find is These Hands, which I find a little bit odd. There's a right bit at the end of These Hands where it goes, "Shut up," or "Stop laughing," or something like that, and it's like this really just cuts dead, and it's just freaky. Okay, then we go on to I've written texturally fast, great organ, wonderful fade out at the end for the organ for this particular track. Then we go on to Noise. So Noise is a 2.5 minute homage to the difference between music and noise, and it's how I feel at gigs. Isn't this song here, guys? And that's how I feel at gigs, because there's a point in a gig where you can't, even with the best, and I've got really good ear protectors, you can't hear some of the notes, the vocals or anything. You're just in that moment, and it's just then it becomes just noise, but it's noise that is wondrous and heartwarming and moving and powerful and aggressive and sexy and scary and dynamic and everything you can, all the moving words that you can think of, and it's basically the lyric between it's basically them singing, they want music for zeros, noise for heroes, and noise. Again, a great sing-along. What the Damned do really well, and I haven't really mentioned this before, is their sing-alongs are usually in triplets. Noise, damned. They just seem to be 3-word sing-along. Not all of them, but it seems to be the way they work, and it's just joyous, right? And it also is weird because where Plan 9 is going forward to the future of their gothic sound, Noise sounds like it should be back on Damned or Music for Pleasure, their first 2 albums. It really sounds like it's come from that, and it might be the leftover, something from the live show from the 70s, mid 70s, or from their recording and couldn't get on to the first 2 albums, which might be the case, because it does sound like it's something from those albums. Joyous and fervent and fever-filled and just lurid. I think that's a good word. It's lurid. It feels like amphetamine filled, cocaine inspired pogo madness, and that's what I love. It's what makes me love punk. It's what gives me joy and brings me warmth to my heart. We've got to march on because we're running out of time, guys, but then we look at Looking at You, which is a really good cover version of and Motor City 5 song off the side A of their first album, which is Coming to America. And it's just, if you don't know who the Motor City 5 are, you should do by now if you listen to this show. They're still on the FBI or CIA's watch list. They were they were the first people to swear on a record in America, I think, when they kick out the jams, motherfuckers. They are proto-American, like the Kinks were the proto-British punks, MC5 the proto-American punks. like the Tubes and so on, and they sort of took the Grateful Dead and the hippie idea, and took Deep Purple and T-Rex and rock and roll and blues, and they just sped it up to silly speeds and for that time, and in the early 60s and early 70s, and created a sound that was so unique and so scary for people that they got banned all over the place. And it's appropriate that Looking at You is on this album. I'm not going to discuss the music. I think you don't need to. I'd want you to listen to the original, then listen to this. I think it's very faithful. They haven't mucked around with it. Clearly just punching back to their influences, right? And then we end. No, we've got Liar. Sorry, then we have Liar, Liar again. Liar, Liar, Liar. It's a 3-word chorus. Again, it feels like it should be on the first 2 albums. It's an album with contradictions. It's up and it's down. It's back and it's forward. It's looking forward to the future. It's looking back to the past. There's a great lyric in it. I'll send your mum to bed to find if your sister is frigid. You ask me. I just said yes. I just like. It's a crazy lyric. 1 second, I think I've written that. My handwriting's terrible. 1 moment. Here you go, guys. I send your mum to bed to find if your sister's frigid. You ask me why, I just lie. I lie, lie, lie. I love that. I smoked your last cigarette. I said that someone else did it. It's that youthful exuberance. I mean, they weren't young, these guys, when they were writing this album, in probably mid-20s, but it feels that they were just channeling their teenager, just channeling their teenager. I love spending hours watching television. I tell the best lies, and then I call up your crepid politicians. I'm a liar, liar. I never tell the truth. It's just. I mean, again, it's just about the exuberance of youth and the hubris of youth, right? And they don't want to tell you the truth. It's like that great lyric from New Rose. Not from what's I'm going a big blank because I'm old. Sorry. There's a great lyric from one of these songs on Music for Pleasure, where it says probation officers said you ain't so bad. I've got my records. I'm gonna play them loud. It's just like, it's very youthful and aiming at the sort of, the Borstal crowd, as my brother would call them, which is like a youth prison in the UK in the 70s. A very nasty place. The Sham 69 wrote a great song called Borstal Breakout. I highly recommend you listen to that as well. So moving on from there, we're going to finish on the last song on the album, which was the big single of the album, which is the song that most people know the band for, which is Smash It Up. Again, brilliant sing-along song. It's in 2 parts. The first part is it's like a 30-40 second guitar medley just on its own. It's just Captain playing a beautiful guitar medley. And then the second part is anti-hippie. Sorry hippies and people out there, it's anti-hippie. It's about, they reference the Glastonbury hippies, and they reference your fluffy hairdos. It's paradoxical song, really, isn't it? Because they're sort of playing up on that anti-hippie thing at the same time. There's I don't know if you can hear this, but the bloody gardener, every time I go to record the gardeners, I haven't got a garden, I'm not posh, this is the gardener in a complex, it's mowing. Anyway, so, on the other hand, you've got Captain, who loves Hendrix, and you couldn't get more hippier than Hendrix, really. Because you've got to remember, these guys, I was thinking about this the other day, these guys grew up, punk didn't happen to them, they didn't suddenly get born and there was punk. They grew up, they were in their 16 and 17 when punk happened. They would have spent their youth listening to their parents' music, or music from the 60s and 50s. So they had this influence already, whereas kids in the 80s and 90s who listen to punk now call themselves punk. Well, they aren't influenced, they're not going anywhere, they're not influenced, they're not moving forward, because they're not looking back at other things. They just go, I only listen to punk, and it has to be 3 chords and da 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 and over. And so they don't have they don't have the influence those guys had, and that's why it's so contradictory in a paradoxical way that they are sort of anti-hippie in this song. It's just having a go at the countercultures, and it's an easy thing to do, isn't it? Really, it's like xenophobia. It's an easy reference point to sort of use. The organ on it though is just heaving. The organ in the background pulls this song along, and that wonderful sing along. Ooh, ooh, smash it up, smash it up. Smash it up. It's so sing along. You can't help yourself but sing along. It does sound like, you know, and it's a live crowd favourite. I've seen the Damned a handful of times, and every time they play Smash It Up, they always do. Just like they play New Rose and so on. And it's just, and Ballroom Blitz. It's just one of the best songs they ever produced, because it's just free. It's free. It's intelligent. It hasn't hang around. It's wonderful. Sonically, the bass part. I mean, I haven't really talked about Algie Ward's bass parts through this, but and also, I mean, Rat Scabies on drums. Rat Scabies on drums is just immense in this. He got a small kit, but he makes that kit sound like it's like 32 piece, right? And Algie Ward is just, you know, he's always been an amazing. He plays the Explorer bass. You know, he played with the Saints for a little while in Australia, right? Here, so. You know, he's been around a bit before he got to there, to the Damned. So just a, you know, brilliant ending track. It was banned again by the BBC because of his anarchistic overtones. What I say to that, a lot of bullshit, really. You know that. I mean, nowadays you can say what you want. It's incredibly stupid, but back then it was very sensitive, because we were just post-war, and Britain still had its nose up its own arse, to some extent. You know, couldn't see the wood for the trees a lot of the time. I think this is almost like a punk prayer. I think this is almost like something that if you had a punk church, this would be the one that would be singing to praise the altar of punk. It really is. It sums punk up inevitably, you know, incredibly well, and inevitably in the one song. Smash it up, you know, break down the walls of musical boredom, and break down the boundaries that stop people from recording because you're not, you know, Mike Oldfield or Peter Gabriel, or, you know, and that's not going to go at them. I love Mike Oldfield and Peter Gabriel, but you know what I'm saying? It's just saying that you don't have this, you know, Oxbridge Cambridge connection, you know, it's, you know, because like the 50s, the teenager was born, like the 70s, music suddenly became the paradigm and the ownership of the youth, the proper youth. They suddenly had money, they suddenly were working, they suddenly had pocket money, more of it, and the music was in those companies wanted that money out of their tight denim pants and into their over abundant coiffers offshore in Qatar somewhere or something, or the Canary Islands. That's where they wanted their money. And the truth of the fact is that means that they control what has been bought. I mean, people will say that it's the other way around, that the record labels manipulate the youth. I think that's complete bullshit. I think that the youth manipulate the bands, they manipulate the record companies, that manipulate the parents, manipulate the airwaves, and so on. It's a knock-on effect, but it starts really from those feet that walk into the store to buy that record. That, you know, because yes, there is influence, and you can be influenced, and these people are influenced. But when your money was very tight, you would spend it on something you truly wanted. You wouldn't just splash it on some shit. Although we did, of course we did. I mean, I bought some stuff, and very dubious stuff. I can't mention on the air now. Maybe one day when I've had some counselling or something. But we've all done it, right? But you wouldn't do it again. Anyway, summing up. Sorry, I've gone over a fair bit of time this time, but it's a cracking album. It's worth every minute of its 30-odd minutes run time. It is the Sgt. Pepper of the pump of the Beatles, of the Damned's catalogue. It is that bridge from their exuberant youthful punk to their introspective goth-driven Cure-esque sort of sideshow freakery that they did in the later albums. It is, I think, a brilliant lineup. It was real sad that Ward didn't stay with them, but anyway, it is what it is. I'm just going to say, go grab it. It won't take a lot of your lifetime up to listen to. Yes, it's not heavy metal, but there is heavy metal connections, guys. And you know what? We have to spread our wings and enjoy other things, don't we? So, hope you enjoyed that. I've waffled on long enough. I may have got something wrong, as I often do. Hope my new book wasn't too loud. Flip, 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 blah, 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 blah. And the gardening wasn't too much in the background. Anyway, that's me for the afternoon. I'm going to go and watch a bit of TV and lounge around for the rest of the day. I'm recording my day off, and often I enjoy looking forward to recording. I also enjoy to doing nothing as well. So, talk to you soon, guys. Bye for now.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
This week, we analyze the remarkable marketing skills of Taylor Swift. She has regained ownership of her master recordings, convinced Apple and Spotify to pay artists in a more equitable way. She defied Hollywood. She markets her music in very surprising ways and holds over 70 Guinness World Records. The marketing of Taylor Swift. This week on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.